Hello, Pontus. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Sai. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me here today.
For sure. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Pontus, and I'm currently a staff engineer, back and tech lead at Shares, where we're building modern investment platforms for individuals, wealth managers, and enterprise clients. So everything from employee saving plans to personal trading. And my journey into tech started pretty early. I taught myself to code at the age of 10. And
Wow.
at around 16, I was freelancing and getting my hands on real world projects. And
Wow.
since then, I worn a few different hats. So I was part owner in a company building web-based point of sale system. I worked at one of Sweden's major banks and helped the Swedish Environmental Agency as a consultant across both development and procurement. Across now a few years ago, I moved from Sweden to Luxembourg, where I spent time at an insurtech company before I had the opportunity to join Shares.
Wow.
Across,
You've done so much and you look so young. Oh my goodness.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, but I think it's been an interesting journey so far, and across all these roles, from public sector to fintech, I've seen how engineering culture can either empower teams and accelerate business, or quietly get in the way. So yeah, that's what I'm here to talk about today, and hopefully I can give you a couple of ideas on how building well thriving and health engineering culture that not only ship code but actually drive the business forward.
That's so exciting. And I think this is such a good topic because a lot of people do not realize, like you said, the kind of culture you build for your engineers can be the difference between you being successful and you not getting there as quickly as you'd like. So I'd love to get into the first question. What would you say is the biggest mistake that startups make when building their engineering team in growth mode?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And building your engineering teams in growth mode sure comes with a lot of challenges. Um, and I think often there could be an underestimation when it comes to the value of a well-working culture. And I think the biggest mistake by far is to try to scale the output before scaling the culture. Um, Meaning that there's a belief or an idea that the next big hire or process will magically fix all their deliver bottlenecks. But adding more engineers without shared values or clear communication norms and aligned expectations tend to lead to nothing but entropy. And it's around there you start seeing silos and people optimizing for their local tasks instead of company impact. So that's why it's so important, I believe, to invest in the culture and your values early on, and also in the hows, so how decisions are made, how feedback flows, understanding of the product and future goals, because otherwise you'll find yourself scaling this function.
Mm. And of course, we don't want that. We do not want to scale dysfunction. So I know we're talking about healthy engineering culture. Can you just share with us what does a healthy engineering culture look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, for sure. And that's so I thought a lot about that and was hoping to bring something really, really exciting to the table. But to be honest, a healthy engineering culture on a day-to-day basis looks quite boring, but in a good way. Um, you have a health engineering or a healthy environment, which is predictable and low drama executions. Engineers know what's expected, where to seek help, how to influence and be part of the decision making, and why their work matters. And there's definitely a couple of ways you're able to observe this. And for example, in thoughtful code reviews, it's not about nitpicking, but a shared learning experience and willing to share share and grow together as a team. And if we look beyond the engineering teams, and we include product and business into the equation, and we observe the collaboration and discussions involving all these parties, I think when the both sides come away smarter, that's when you have a really well functioning engineering culture. So to
Mm.
sum it up, I would say it's a safe, focused, and energized environment.
Mm. Yeah, I really like the way you describe that. It's almost as if it's boring and working, then it's probably healthy. Like if there's always all this drama and if there's always excitement, then there's an issue there. And I think that that makes so much sense because sometimes we're looking for something exciting, but it's not great in the work environment. So that makes sense. Um so I know, like with engineers, well, with everybody, but we're talking specifically about engineers. They really need time to do deep work, to really think about solving problems and being able to execute whatever the challenge is in a way that it makes sense and it meets the goals and all of that stuff. So what would
Absolutely.
you say like is the best way or you've seen in the past to balance focus time with collaboration as a team as the teams continue to scale and grow and get larger?
Yeah. So I think there's always a tendency to try to change what you're doing and to try to find or like add more, introduce more meetings and such. Um, but it's crucial that you're able to protect your focus time there. And I would say that protecting focus time is a leadership problem and not a calendar one. And as a leader, you'll have to try to reduce chaos at the root to start with. So first off, identify them, but I think two fundamental pieces would be that you look at the priorities, or is the priorities clear, and then define the ownerships so people know where to go for when they need help or additional information, etc. And one a third thing was something I experienced when I joined Shares. So our CDO, Francois Rude, he introduced and put into place a no afternoon meeting policy for the engineering teams. And that was game changer because all of a sudden you freed so much time that you had time to go into deep focus and execute without a lot of distractions and such. But it was not only a game changer because you got all of this time that you were able to focus, but also the signal that sent out. So when it sent out such a strong signal to the whole engineering team that your time and focus matters. And I think that's one of the fundamental things which has contributed to the culture we have at Shares, for example. And that is something, I would recommend pretty much any engineering team to do.
Hmm. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. I really love that example about your leadership, showing the engineering team that they value the engineer's time and their focus. What else would you say that, like, what does it take to create a culture where engineers feel safe, not only to speak up about what's going on, but just safe enough to try new ideas and, ideas that might be a bit scary, but it might be game changing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what engineers need, and if you're looking for that kind of culture, you need a safe environment. And what is a safe environment, you may ask? And For example, if somebody questions a technical decision in a retro or any other place for that matter, and leadership thanks them, even if it's uncomfortable, that sets a tone. Um, if they get shut down or ignored, that sets another. And from what I've seen and in my experience, engineers speak up when they believe their voice leads to impact and not just airtime. And it's easy to forget, but often engineers are artists at heart. They are creative souls. So if you give them autonomy, they will for sure surprise you, because I think innovation doesn't come from pressure alone. It comes from a culture that says we trust your curiosity, we value your voice.
I really love that because a lot of engineers, they don't realize that they are artists at heart because they just feel like, oh, engineers were just 1+1 and, math and all of that. But you're creating something, oftentimes something that didn't exist before. You're solving problems in the most creative way that you can. So I really like that you said engineers are artists at heart. Um, so what would you say are some habits or rituals that you've seen to help teams stay aligned and productive during growth?
Yeah, it's a bit what I touched on earlier when it comes to the growth and the tendency to try to change stuff. But I think the most valuable habits, at least, um, would be things like a weekly engineering syncs, which is like short, high signal meetings where teams share wins, blockers, decisions, upcoming work, etc., because it keeps everyone in the loop and it gives engineers a opportunity to hear what's going on and where they are heading. And a second thing I would say would be the demos. It's easy to underestimate the value of them as well. But even if they only include internal tools a week, it contributes to building pride and context around the product you're building and working on. So the key takeaway to stay aligned and productive during growth, I would say the fundamental thing is that consistency is more powerful than intensity, and rituals that feel boring but useful tends to scale the best.
I really like that. And I remember being part of demo days, and you could just see, even if there are some things that the non-technical team didn't understand, but you can see the pride in the engineering team because they're presenting something they've worked on
Yeah.
and the way they're explaining it and they're expressing themselves. So I can see how that could be really valuable. Um, so, what would you say is one signal that your engineering culture is working, and maybe one that it's not working?
So I think one of the strongest signals would be when you see your engineers are pushing back productively. Um, they are eager to like reshape requirements or pushing back on timelines, saying this like this scope seems off for the timeline, or let's rethink the user flow, or what else it might be. But it means that they care and they are engaged and they feel safe. On the other hand, if you receive no feedback or no response, that's probably a warning sign which you should look after. And when they just nod and get to coding, it's lower energy in the meetings. There's no feedback or response. It's usually not alignment but disengagement. So that's certainly something to look out for.
I really like that point. I know I keep saying that, but oftentimes, maybe some more authoritarian people, they really value that silence. Like, oh, if there's no pushback, then we're good. But you're saying pushback is actually a good thing. So if you're not like the productive pushback, providing some ideas and some input, But if they're not saying anything, that's not a good culture. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that. Um, a lot of people are thinking about AI and engineering, and some people are scared, but we believe that AI can be helpful. So what do you think about that? Is it possible for AI to help with building an engineering culture, that like an engineering friendly culture?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, but it's a bit the same that I was saying, that the next big hire or process most likely won't fix all your delivery bottlenecks. Uh, AI won't either, but it can certainly be a great addition to your toolbox to enhance the engineering experience and contribute to a healthy culture. So the way I see it is that AI isn't just about velocity, but it's a quality of experience. And a few examples around that would be, for example, AI pair programmers, which can help in a lot of ways. But for example, they can reduce the fear of looking dumb when tackling unfamiliar code or a topic which you're not entirely sure about. And um, compared to rubber duck, which I know many engineers have sitting on their desktop, the AI pair programmers actually give you some feedback which you are able to ingest and get a bit more educated on any given topic. So I think that's a great addition to your toolbox that you should really start using now if you're not doing it already. And then comes all the other things it can do. It can automate all the repetitive stuff, help you write boilerplate code, generating test stubs, suggesting fixes, and freeing engineers to focus on harder, more meaningful problems instead. And AI can even help you in the review processes in a lot of ways, like highlighting patterns in PR in addition to like static analysis. And it can do the initial screening or the initial reviews, saving time and improve velocity both for uh, managers and peers to review more effectively. But when it comes to the culture, I think you need to keep in mind that the engineering culture should be human led, because AI enhances the experience, etc., but it won't fix trust, communication, or leadership problems.
Mm. Yes, we still need humans to make the culture the what we want it to be. So that makes a lot of sense.
For
We've
sure.
talked about quite a few things. What would you say is one small shift a founder or a manager could make this week to improve the engineering team's health?
So if there's one thing which I think that they could do right away, is just to go out there and start by asking your engineers what's slowing you down, and listen without defending. Then pick one thing that they say. It might be technical depth, um, unclear priorities, or noisy stand-ups, and act on that, because even a small win builds trust. And when engineers see that leadership is responsive to their reality and not just pushing for more output, that changes everything, and it paves the way for a health and sustainable engineering culture, I would say.
Hmm, that makes so much sense. Trust is so important in a lot of working relationships. So would
Yeah.
you say now, with everything, is there any key takeaway that you would like to end with that people can take away from this conversation?
Yeah, if there's one thing about the engineering culture, and one thing to to keep in mind and reflect over, is that engineering culture isn't defined by your tech stack or sprint rituals. It's in the trust you give, the friction you remove, the curiosity you reward, and the ownership you expect. And build your engineering culture right, and your engineers won't just build features, they'll build the business.
I love it. I want to start snapping. Like, this is poetry. Like, they won't just build features, they will help you to build your business. I love that.
For
So,
sure.
people listening to this, they might say, we would like to connect with you and ask you questions. What would be the best way for them to reach you?
I think the best and most easiest way would be to send an invite on LinkedIn. Um, Search my name and you'll find me there. I'm happy to connect. And if you're keen to discuss engineering culture or any other engineering topic, I'm always happy to do that.
Mm. Thank you so much, Pontus. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you once again, Usai, for having me here today, and I look forward to the next time.